How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting. Welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 3. Yeah, spicy times. Spicy times indeed. So, Keiichi did it. He took out creepy uncle, evil uncle. Got caught by Takada-san, who probably had Tobataka-san's body in her trunk, which implies that she's been the one that took him out all the time, but then she gets taken out and vanished. Because, again, they found a body in the barrel being burned. That seems to be her. So, again, why in the village does her committing a Watanagashi murder? Because she is a member of Hinamizawa. So it kind of makes sense. I thought she was, like, the perpetrator, right? But maybe that's the thing, is they do perpetrate. So she does violate the taboo. And then kills Tobataka-san, who was also part of the taboo, so they don't mind that she takes him out, but she also needs to be punished. Maybe that's the whole thing, but it still implies that the whole thing was planned for a while, which is odd to me. I want to understand that someday, but I think this is where it's all going to come unraveling really quick. And someone in the last episode made a comment saying that they consider that this is, quote, the end of the prologue. Are you kidding me? The prologue? We're in Chapter 3, at the end of Chapter 3. This is the prologue in your eye. That's insane. But maybe what you're implying there is that we now have enough information that we can start to see the whole picture. So, like, maybe now, if I were to replay Chapters 1 and 2, there would be a lot more that would make sense as things play out. And I believe part of it is being that the fact that Takada-san is clearly much more involved in the actual Watanagashi like situation than I previously expected. I thought she was just an overtly too curious person, but it seems like she's directly involved somehow. But now, I'm not sure if we're going to learn more about that, because I think now it's just going to be the walls closing in on Keiichi, because he left way too much evidence. He was seen by way too many people. And it's like, and it's funny because, like, I imagine that this whole scenario has played out a lot like how most planned murders actually do. You come up with an idea, you're convinced it's foolproof, because you would never actually do it unless you were pretty sure you could get away with it. Like, no one murders people, especially in a planned way, unless they can convince themselves they can get away with it. But oftentimes it falls apart because they lose their nerve. They don't have an alibi that checks out. Too much circumstantial evidence they weren't able to hide, or that they didn't hide well enough. And ultimately, more people notice things than you would expect. I think that's what's going to do them on. So, let's jump in. I don't have the most time to record. I think the longest this episode is going to end up being is 2 hours, just because I literally have a cap. Like, I have to, like, do stuff in a couple hours. But if I don't record this now, it's going to be tough for me to find time to record it. So, I'm going to do it now. I would say if we hit an hour and a half, I'll probably stop there, even if it's not the best place. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go. At first, I thought it was a dream. I was staring at this strange sheet, not really understanding what it was. That was all. I didn't go after it, nor did I ridicule it. It was the fact that it was a boring view. It was the ceiling of my own room, but I didn't realize that for a fairly long time. So there's other stuff now I'm going to have a problem with here. Not a problem with, but like, he comes wandering in. He could try and claim he went to the festival, but that night is going to clearly fall apart quickly. His parents are probably going to have to turn him in, because he comes in like looking like an absolute mess. What explanation is he going to make that's going to make sense to them? If he was gone for so long, why wasn't he at the festival? If he wasn't at the festival, what was he doing? And why did it involve him being so covered in muck? It's like, there's just no way. I think his parents are going to have to, like, decide if they're going to actually turn him in or not. Yes. I thought I'd been dreaming, but I actually had been staring at the ceiling the whole time. Oyashiro-sama. So the curse. If the curse is real, Oyashiro-sama gave him the confidence and helped him plan and kind of like have the mental strength and physical strength to commit the crime. But it kind of promised and whispered to him that everything was going to be okay, but I think it's going to leave him high and dry, because I think that's what happened to Takano-san. Takano-san took out Tomataka-san. But then she gets immediately like erased, right? And maybe that's the pattern. The true pattern is that in Hinamizawa is that one person commits the murder, but then the murderer has to pay the price and be vanished, because that leads this like it keeps the remember the whole narrative at the beginning that we talked about the last chapters, like, and the perfect murder is one where the story never starts. It'd be hard to start the story if the only person who, could be like the perpetrator also gets killed. It's hard to trace that down too, because anytime you look into it, like in any degree of depth, you just find that the person who committed the atrocity likely also died. And so it's hard to persecute, because it's like, who's going to have a ton of sympathy for someone who pretty clearly committed a murder? In fact, Takeshi, like, he took out his aunt and then probably got vanished himself because of it. All right. Lethargy induced by the voices of the cicadas. Even after I realized I was awake, I couldn't draw forth the energy to sit up. Everything I could see, everything I could hear, everything was like a television broadcast that had already ended. It was hot. So hot I could choke on the heat. My back was moist with night sweat, and it felt gross. Unable to endure it any longer, I tossed into my futon, and finally blood started coursing through my brain. I lazily recalled the long day I'd had yesterday. The reality, as I lay here listening to the voices of the cicadas, and yesterday so different from it. In order to kill Satoko's uncle, I'd rehearsed, formulated a plan, and dug a hole. It was very hot. I was tired, wasn't I? And then when everything came, I went to school, called him out on the phone, panicked for a moment when he asked where the police station was, but it worked out. And then I awaited him and swooped down. I couldn't remember any more of what sort of emotions I'd let control my body. In any case, it didn't go smoothly, but I did it. It was very hard to dig the hole for the body. That felt the feel of the rain pelting down on me. I don't think I'll ever forget it. The rain, the mud, and the sprays of blood. The sensation of floundering in a swamp. When I met Takano-san on the way home, that wasn't good, no matter how I interpreted it. It was the most misfortunate and uncalculated thing that had happened that night. Maybe, but there was a lot. There was a lot. Everything would have been perfect if only I hadn't encountered her. No, that's a lie. I was just riding my bike with my shovel in one hand through a downpour, utterly soaked. There was no way someone could surmise I was a murderer by burying a body just from that information. No, but if they find a body, they're going to be looking for people who were riding their bikes with shovels, basically. Now that I was thinking calmly, napping under the morning sun, that's what I thought. Still, the more I thought about Takano-san's eyes, it seemed like she understood. Takano-san, she knew that I'd killed somebody, buried them, and that I'd been on my way home, exhausted. Takano-san wouldn't gain anything from selling me out to the police, but that didn't mean I could feel at ease. That's kind of the daisy chain, too. I think one of the biggest problems with killing people is once you do it, I think it breaks the taboo a bit in your brain, and it becomes more apparent how easy it is. What's kind of scary is, like, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm someone who is always perpetually considering, like impacts of things around me. I'm always conceptualizing worst case scenarios, that there are times where I'm always looking towards, like, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? What are the events that could happen in my life that would be crappy, right? I'm always thinking ahead and trying to plan for things like that. And as I've done that, and as I've learned and just grown, I've come to realize that it's way easier to kill people than you'd think. I feel like we are far more delicate than we give ourselves credit for. There are amazing things we can recover from, especially with modern medicine. Things that would have just immediately been like a long, slow death for people throughout history are now recoverable because of medicine, which is great. But we still forget how fragile life is for each of us. Again, I think I mentioned it last time, but like someone with a strong enough punch hitting you in the back of the head, kind of at the base of the neck, can snap your neck. Like, it doesn't take more. It takes a lot less force than you would think. It's also the story that we've all grown up with, watching cartoons and even movies in Hollywood. These ideas of things like, oh, you can take someone could swing a weapon, hit you in the head, knock you unconscious, and you can wake up again and like function. Normally, if someone hits you in the head hard enough to knock you unconscious, there's a decent chance you have permanent damage. Brain damage, skull fractures, all of it. Like, anytime somebody is being brought to unconsciousness because of, like, some kind of trauma, there's a very strong chance that that's going to leave permanent damage, which is why things like boxing, MMA is so scary, and probably why those people deserve to get paid as well as they do. Football's the same way, though, where it's like that trauma is not something that you can just bounce back from. Those people are pushing their bodies, and they're going to quickly have like the bodies of old men because their bones, their tendons, and their brain are just going to be pulverized. So they make a lot of money, they retire early, and they just exist with whatever's left of their body at that point. But it's just that highlighted example again, like, it's so much easier than you probably think. And that's what's scary, is once you realize that in this tactile sense of like, hey, I could just get rid of anybody who gets in my way because it's not that hard, quote unquote. In fact, the biggest reason why it doesn't happen all the time is because we know the social kickback. I imagine a lot of people were removed in history just because they were in places or in areas and the technology wasn't around to do investigations. The fact that people could still track down and catch murderers back in, like, I don't know, like the 1500s is kind of crazy to me, because it feels like at that time period it'd be way easier to get away with it. Yet people didn't. But it probably means that for every one person who didn't get away with it, there were probably hundreds, if not thousands, that did. And that's terrifying. I had crossed such a bridge to get my tranquil life back. I read that backwards, and I'd finally achieved it as a result. But now, for the rest of my life, and for all the tranquil days starting today, I'd have to live in fear of when they could suddenly end. I may have twisted my ankle, dull from the total exhaustion. The fact that I couldn't make that snap judgment I needed to, I regretted it more and more as time went on. You didn't have a choice, Keiichi Maribara. You didn't have any choice at the time. You were tired. You were a mess. Even if you had made a decision, you might not have been able to kill her. I don't think you would have. She might have just beaten you instead. In that sense, parting ways uneventfully could have been the safer option. No matter how sharp Takano-san's intuition was, she had no proof. Her suspecting me didn't amount to any evidence by itself. It's like he's talking to himself. I wonder if this is him like talking to Oyashiro-sama. Just worry about when time comes. Now isn't the time to be worrying. It's the time to be smiling, right? You accomplished so much just to gain a new life starting today, didn't you? Then you should be happy at this new morning. If remembering the past is too hard for you, then just consider everything up till yesterday as having never happened. You said it so yourself. You'd bury it all like it never happened. Well, your wish came true. Everything before yesterday never happened. So be happy, Keiichi Maribara. I stuck out my hands lazily. Felt a little silly for me to be the one doing it. I heaved a sigh from deep into my belly. That sigh got my lungs moving. Felt like I hadn't been breathing until just now. It wasn't enough to admonish myself over. All the dice that could be thrown had already been. It's kind of funny, he mentions that, like, this idea of, like, I felt like I hadn't been breathing until just now. I think, like, I mentioned this before, but I have a sensitivity to anesthesia, which we discovered when I had my first major surgery, which was when I crashed on my bike and, like, exploded my knee. They had to reconstruct it. I'm gonna have terrible knees for my whole life. In fact, I actually can't even do, like, I used to ski. I did a little bit of water skiing, but I did a lot more snow skiing. But that's just such a high risk for me re-injuring my knee now. I just can't do it. So even if I want to, it's just not in the stars anymore. I'm borrowed time when it comes to my leg. Basically, I'm holding out for gosh darn it, I know the game. Cyber 2077. Cyberpunk 2077. Like, I'm basically waiting for the ability to have a cyborg knee. Like they have fake knees, but like I'm hoping for something better eventually. But yeah, like I'm lucky I can walk basically. If we hadn't had modern technology, what would have happened is my knee would have healed, but it would have frozen and locked in place because all the bones would have fused together. I would have had a basically a living peg leg for the rest of my life. And basically, I would have had to choose, do I want it straight or bent? Because it would have fused however they decide to set it. And so that would have sucked. Or if it had been maybe in the 1900s, 1800s, they probably would have just amputated. Be like, look, this break is not going to heal properly. Better to amputate and just to live with it like that. So I'm grateful for that. But it sucks still. But anyway, long story short about that, I went under anesthesia. I went for the surgery where they reconstructed the knee. I was supposed to be under anesthesia for 4 hours. So I go in, we start the surgery at like 10 o'clock in the morning. I should have woken up by 2 in the afternoon. I woke up at 9 o'clock that night. And even then, I had to concentrate on breathing in order to breathe enough to stay awake. My breathing was just so suppressed, and my passive, there's a term for it. I know it. I'm just too tired right now. But it's the brainstem controls the sympathetic nerve system. My sympathetic nervous system was being suppressed. So if I wasn't concentrating on breathing like the oxygen that was coming in through like the tubes in my nose, I was breathing so slowly and so shallowly I couldn't stay awake. So like I had to like actively think like breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, and take these deep breaths in order to wake up enough to hold conversations with people. So they had to keep me under observation for like a day. Just to make sure I wasn't like not gonna like just pass out permanently, enter coma kind of thing. They didn't say it that way, but like as I've learned more growing up, I've realized like, yeah, I was actually in a pretty severe danger with the anesthesia. And so ever since then, I've always alerted people if I ever have to go through anesthesia to like, hey, I'm extra sensitive, just be careful of that. And they always take me seriously too, which is good. Anyway, all the dice that had been thrown could be thrown have been thrown. And the numbers that turned up, they weren't bad at all. If I lost with those numbers, then I just have to give up, I guess. I grabbed the chest of my pajamas and flapped it back and forth. Cool air flowed over my sweating body. Okay, nothing before yesterday happened. Nothing. Nothing at all. I'd forget it all. Yesterday was all a dream. What time was it? About midday? Getting myself up and going to school this late seemed kind of absurd, but I needed to go. I felt like going to school would be the first step in my peaceful new life. I didn't care how late it was, I would go. I'd go to school right now, get back the life I'd retaken as soon as I could. My lazy body immediately became lighter at the thought. I rolled up out of the futon, bounced onto my knees, and leapt upright. I stuck out my chest with pride as like a gymnast pose and took a deep breath of fresh air. The brisk morning air had been gone for a while, replaced by the crisp air of summer. Downstairs, I got a stern talking to by my mother. Where were you last night? Where did you get back? You need to tell me why you won't be home for dinner, things like that. But considering that importance of what I'd accomplished yesterday, a little scolding was no problem. In fact, I even felt like the sort of thing that would happen in such a peaceful life. I listened with an irresponsible smile, stepped out into the sun high overhead. It was around time lunch break would be ending. Everyone would probably be worrying about me. Yeah, especially me on Fetch Me. I didn't go to the festival, and now I wasn't at school. Well, maybe they weren't too worried about it. Since they would have gotten a small piece of news, but a happy one from Satoko today. Yes, a small piece of news that her uncle hadn't come home last night. Satoko would probably live her days as nervous tension for a while, thinking he might still come home. But eventually those days would end. And finally Satoko too would realize her uncle was never coming back. So, he needs to get his story straight, which he's not doing. But my story would be to my mom, hey, I tried to go, I rode my bike, I got lost, and then the rain started, and so I tried to wait it out, but eventually I gave up, tried to find my way back. I think I got even more lost. I fell in the mud a couple times. Finally got myself home. But like, I think I might have had a fever or something too, which is why I got so confused. And I feel like that's probably why I slept in, but I feel a lot better now. So I'm going to try and go to school while I can. Like that would be my story. I'd be like, I got lost on my way to the festival because I think I had a fever. It's somewhat believable. I mean, will it stand up against the stacking evidence? No, but it's the best story I could think of right now, and I think it's better than what he probably has when he gets there. They're gonna be like, "Why? Where were you yesterday?" He's gonna be like, because he's Keiichi. He doesn't think ahead. And then Rika-chan would quietly invite her. She would say, "You can live with me again," and everything would be back to normal. Our lives would go back to how they were before the man appeared. Satoko would start wearing that extraordinary smile, complete with those protruding canines, and fool everyone with those traps she was so proud of. I'd probably be her first target out of everyone, but I wouldn't be mad. In fact, I might actually shed tears of joy at the return of something so normal. Satoko, she'd gradually grow back to that meddlesome personality of hers. I mean, my lack of useful life skills was already completely exposed. I wondered if I'd ever be a match for Satoko. But that would be such a pleasant thing to see too. And with such warm fuzzy predictions, I didn't feel bad going to school so late. In fact, I wanted to run there now so that I could get there as soon as I could. Instead, I decided to savor the peacefulness of just going to school like normal without running. The world I'd obtained for myself that gave me joy just by walking like this. Yes, the world beginning on this very day was something I had won. Without that monumental feat yesterday, I would never have been able to come to school as cheerfully today. Kind of surprised he didn't ride his bike, honestly. The school gates came into sight. Just then I heard the principal ringing the bell and mark the end of lunch break. It was clear, refreshing sound. I stopped despite myself and let myself take it in. Tap. I had stopped suddenly, so there was an extra footstep. With a noise, that blessedness I was feeling throughout my whole body withdrew into any pore I could find. And as if to replace it, I felt like 100 of hairy caterpillars were crawling up my feet. It's gonna be Oishi-san. I turned back, but of course no one was there. Oh, really? I genuinely thought it was gonna be Oishi-san saying, "Hello! Let's have a chat!" A single footstep could have easily been my imagination. But the footstep felt so ominous. That exact extra footstep I'd heard after seeing Takano-san off late last night. With everything that happened on the insane night, didn't mind something like that happening once. It had been a hell of a night after all. In fact, having just one hallucination was pretty fortunate. Like, hey, I'm counting my blessings here. But those footsteps should have ended yesterday, so if I heard them again today, there was really only one thing it could have meant. Last night still wasn't over. It was still going. Still. That insane night forever. The step I heard, just that one extra footstep, was quietly ridiculing the nonsensical notion that the world starting today was completely different from the one that ended yesterday. I mean, that's true. My classmates playing in the schoolyard all vanished inside like a tide going out. When I approached the school, I felt like the warm fuzzy scene had ended and it didn't feel good. At the entrance, I took a quick look in everyone's shoeboxes. Satoko Hyojo. She was here. Mion was here too. And Rena, of course. Even Rika-chan was here. Tomataka-kun, Okumura-kun were here. In fact, I didn't see any missing classmates. If there were shoes missing, it would be my own. I took my shoes off, stuck them in, and then took some slippers. There wasn't a single pair left in the shoebox anymore. With that, they returned to the rightful state. But as I stepped into the wooden floor, I noticed there was just one pair of slippers left. Huh? Whose?
Hojo Satoshi.
Huh. Satoshi, who had never been to school since disappearing last year. Until now, we had committed the exact same act of violence, but I guess in the very end it went differently. You couldn't make it to school, but here I am. I didn't repeat the same mistake you made. I wasn't about to let myself feel superior about that. In fact, I felt an odd sense of familiarity with him. A misfortunate bond with someone I'd never met due to following the same fate. Yeah, but I feel like we're going to keep walking in his footsteps, unfortunately. I headed down the hallway toward the usual classroom. Felt like it'd been a whole year since coming here. Hey, did you forget, Keiichi Maribara? Satoshi Hyojo didn't really disappear on the night of Watanagashi, did he? Yeah, that's what I thought. Satoshi Hyojo disappeared a few days later. On Satoko's birthday, if I was right. I didn't know what day it was, but I couldn't say for sure I'd avoided Satoshi's failure until I remained here past that day. I was still living in that night of insanity. The teacher still hadn't come to the classroom. The other door clattered open, the one the teacher wouldn't use, so everyone turned once to see who had arrived. Everyone looked pretty vacant. Suppose I'll greet them.
Ohayo, Shokun. Demukae gokurou de aru zo yo.
Silence. When I started to think I'd fallen flat, someone finally started laughing for me.
Ohayo, Kei-chan. Kei-san mo tobashiteru ne. 飛ばしてるね。ケイチ君、まだお祭り気分が抜けてないのかもしれない。
Oh, wait a minute. I just had a thought here. Are they gonna cover for him? Did they have a chat? So like, okay, so he was up to something. But let's say he was with us the whole time. Because what if they were questioned by police already? And so they're like, we need to cover for him. So they covered for him. And now they have to like somehow communicate to him, like, you were with us at the festival, okay? Come on, pick up on it, Keiichi. Hearing me on Rena's cheerful voices made me realize how dumb those dark feelings had been at the entrance really were.
おいおい、お祭り気分って。そもそも俺。
At the festival at all, remember? Before I could say that, Rika-chan smiled at me.
ケイイチはちゃんと僕の演舞見ててくれましたですか？
Yeah, come on, pick it up, Keiichi. Come on. They're trying to give it to you. Come on, they got a plan. Go with the flow. And there's the chimes of the curse.
ちゃんと見てたよ。あんなにいっぱい拍手してくれてたのに、リカちゃん気づかなかったのかな？
They're freaking... Dude. He literally has friends who are letting him get away with murder if they can. They're trying their hardest.
ケイちゃんにシオンのやつがちょっかい出してきたのを無視してね。
Or is the curse adding memories too? Like the times could imply that this is the curse's work, which would be crazy.
シオン、ざまあなかった。ああ、いい気分。
Mion starts laughing at the memory as she slaps me a few times on the back.
それで、あの射的屋の対決って結局どうなったんですか？
This is actually kind of creepy though. It's playing out like the memories of the other times we've gone to Watanagashi. Oh, that's weird. Tomotaku-kun was facing me and talking. There was nobody behind me. That meant he was talking to me.
あれは結局、富武がビリだったのですよ。
oh, hang on a second. She said that. I read it as Tomotaku-kun turned up dead last night. And I was like, why are you saying that with such a smile? Then I realized it didn't have night. It was dead because dead last.
みんなで楽しく罰ゲームをしましたです。
Oh my gosh.
リカちゃんも実質ビリみたいなもんだったじゃない。あそこで起死回生の大技でガムをゲットとは、さすがは我が部の部員。見事だったよ。
Yeah, this is all the events that we saw like happen with the first one. Crying at a time like this is the feat only Furude would be allowed to do, said Okumura-kun, breathing heavily from his nose. In my direction. Everyone laughed, but anyone but Rika-chan had done it, it would have been against the rules. Rika-chan gave one of her nipa smiles as she listened to it. In my direction. Rena too turned to me, turned towards me. And then, with a somewhat embarrassed smile, she whispered to me so only I could hear.
でも、本当にありがとね。
They know.
ケイチくん。
何がだよ。
あのでっかいぬいぐるみ。
Whoa. What the fetch? It's like that reality's merged with this one somehow.
すっごく嬉しかった。大事に枕元に置いてるんだよ。
What the fetch?
ちゃんと寝る前にお休みのキスしちゃった。
Okay. The class laughed at that, cheering and jeering. This whole time, the conversation had been a little bit off. I wasn't quite getting it.
ぬいぐるみがどうしたって？
Shut up, Casey! God. Don't you see what a gift this is? Holy crap.
どうしたって昨日のお祭りでみんなで頑張って落としたよ。でっかいぬいぐるみ。
Come on, dude. Pick up. Just go with it, alright?
でっかいぬいぐるみ。
Rena seemed taken aback, but when she answered, she did it with a smile.
なかなか倒せないから額を狙ったり素早く何発も撃ったりしていろいろと試したんだよね。
Oh, this is a new soundtrack. Come on, dude. If this is the curse or whatever, go with it.
それでケイチくん鉄砲を何丁もあらかじめ用意して素早く撃ってみせてくれたんだよね。かっこよかった。はう。
Wait, who was this?
あの後の飲み会でさ、町内会の会長連中にも ケイちゃんの評判すごく良かったんだよ。
Either they cooked up this story and they're utilizing it, or somehow a different Keiichi went to the festival last night. Okay. If either they've had a conversation and like planned all this out, or the curse is real because somehow a doppelganger provided an alibi. But if that can happen, how is anybody even remotely caught? Because that's insane.
ケイちゃんの売り工場に惚れたって騒いでたのは子供会の君吉徳三会長だったかな。
You should keep an eye on someone who's the chairman of the children's committee who says they've fallen in love with a child. That's not good.
次の祭りではぜひケイちゃんに何店舗か任せたいって言ってた。
徳蔵はお祭りの実行委員会の模擬店部長さんなのです。
Maibara-san is great at making things sound good, isn't he? Yep, whenever he talks about something, it seems a lot better than it actually is. Ha ha ha, you could say that. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha.
ケイチ君って売り子さんの才能があるんだね。きっとバナナの叩き売りとかやったら上手だと思うよ。
さっきから何の話だよ。
I want... Come on, dude, just go with it.
だいたい俺
I didn't go to the festival in the first place. I swallowed those words. Thank you. I didn't know exactly why, but in Hinamizawa, this is what had happened. Yesterday, during the Watanagashi festival, Keiichi Maribara had appeared. As he'd romped about with the usual members of his club, he made a big scene in one of the stalls, snatched a few sticks of takoyaki and okonomiya in his glee, rating each of them as delicious or terrible to get everyone excited. And then they'd seen a gigantic stuffed animal at the target practice game, and everyone went after it. And then I got a whole bunch of the cork guns, fired them in rapid succession, throwing each one away after using it. Admirably, I shot down the biggest stuffed animal there. And then I gave the stuffed animal to the proof of my victory to Rena as a gift. Then our fun came to a close and we went to see Rika-chan's offertory dance. There was a ton of people squeezed in there. We all got separated, but we each managed to get a good position to cheer Rika-chan on from. Then in the middle, when Xion came up and asked me to go hang out with her instead of watching the dedication dance, I refused. And stayed put, watching the dance until the very end. Yeah, so like he dodged like the events of the second chapter by staying put. And the events played out as in the first chapter, which it implies kind of also happened in the second chapter. It just wasn't like talked about as much. Interesting. But who was that? Well, everyone's been saying it, haven't they? Keiichi Maribara? I had an urge to yell in anger at my classmates for having so much fun talking about the festival yesterday with Keiichi Maribara. What the hell are you guys even talking about? The far stronger than the feeling, though, was the sheer uncanny nature of this reality I couldn't understand. A Keiichi Maribara who wasn't me was in Hinamizawa yesterday. As I threw away my humanity, turned into a demon, and was busy beating Satoko's uncle to death. I was having a great time at the festival last night. What the hell? I had to suffer through so much? Desperately hold back tears? Getting so worn out in that downpour? Digging holes, chasing, beating, killing? Dragging and burying? Who was this Keiichi Maribara who'd ignored me so and spent some fun, carefree night time at the festival, damn it? Who the hell stood in for me as I put my life on the line working so hard to achieve this treasure-like everyday life? If there was another Keiichi Maribara besides me, then what was I? On the night of Watanagashi, where one died and one disappeared in accordance with Oishiro-sama's curse, there was only a demon who had killed someone. Dumbfounded as I succumbed to the horrifying possibility, I looked around my classmates. To make sure there was nobody extra I didn't recognize among them. To make sure I wasn't among them. That was a horrifying thought. The real Keiichi Maribara hadn't overslept, had come to school on time. And that I, who was no longer Keiichi Maribara, had just waltzed in here. Oh, that's kind of disconcerting just to think about. But no matter how much I checked, the only people who here were the ones I knew. The man I met every time I looked in the bathroom mirror was not here.
はい。午後の授業を始めますよ。皆さん、席に戻ってください。委員長、号令。
The teacher entered and everyone hurried back to their seats. Upon finding me, who was stupidly late, she gave me a stern talking to, but I wasn't listening to it. Wasn't our old life supposed to start today? Something wasn't right. It was just strange. I was supposed to go back to my old fun life after yesterday. I'd set foot in an incomparably and mysterious world. It was completely different from both my old life and my recent one. Yes, this was without a doubt a different world than the one I'd been living in until now. There was no way such an absurd thing could be possible. Oh my gosh, is it implying that he's like phased into chapter 1's world? Like, that's crazy, but it's implying that. And if that was actually the case, that is insane. But unless it was true, I couldn't explain anything that just happened. In this classroom, I was surrounded by so many faces I knew, and yet I felt isolated. The cicadas sounded no different than before now, but they seemed somehow false. The air was patchy and dry, too, making me think the air with Hinamizawa was the air in Hinamizawa always this uncomfortable?
Oi, Rena.
何かな？授業中なんだよ。
昨日の祭りだけどさ、俺、いつ頃みんなと合流したっけ？
To be honest, I was pretty excited afterwards. I gobbled down some cans of beer. What? I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, but I don't quite remember some things. For random babbling, it wasn't a bad excuse.
ケイチ君、最初は来れないって言ってたんだよね。みーちゃんの家にそう電話したんでしょ？
Okay, so that happened. That matched. I called Mion, told her to take Satoko my place since I wouldn't be able to meet up with them due to things I had to do.
さとこちゃんを誘ってあげようっていうのは、みんなでお祭りの準備をしてた時に決めたんだよ。少しでも、おじさんの姿の見えないところに連れ出してあげようと思って。
Yeah, that was the same too. Mion said that when I called her. That everyone had decided to invite her.
それでみんなで、レナとみーちゃんとリカちゃんで、さとこちゃんの家に行って、さとこちゃんを連れ出して。さとこちゃんのおじさん、すっごく意地悪そうな人だった。
Yeah, that part didn't matter. What I was trying to ask was...
俺は、いつ合流したんだ？
そんなことも忘れちゃってるの？ケイチ君。だから祭りの前の日はよく寝た方がいいよって言ったのに。
だから、俺はいつ合流したんだよ。
Keiji, calm down, please. At my sudden threatening demand, Rena was at a loss for words. Oops, shouldn't have rushed that. I told her I was sorry.
境内でだよ。ひょっこりと。リカちゃんと話してたじゃない。
I was talking to Rika-chan, huh?
巫女さん姿のリカちゃんと楽しそうに話してた。それでレナも加わって、お持ち帰り。
リカちゃんと話してたのか。
How does that work? Rika. You know, I mentioned this before, we haven't seen much with Rika yet. I imagine the next chapter will be involving her, but like it's odd because she's been this weird constant through all the stories. I mean, she technically was killed by Mion in the second chapter, but we never see that. She always seems to have a good idea of what's going on. She sees things and understands people. There's something odd about Rika, and it now feels like she somehow was involved in us somehow being at the festival too?
ケイちゃん、用事か何かがあったんじゃないって私が聞いたらさ、ケイちゃん、胸を叩きながら自分で言ったじゃないのよ。
It's very helpful that they're filling in the gaps for us.
用事なんかより祭りで大暴れする方が大切だぜって。
I didn't say that. I never said anything like that. I never even went to the shrine grounds yesterday to begin with. I never had the time to stop at a place like that. I went to dig a hole as soon as I woke up. I had a pretty hard time doing it. After that, I snuck into school and made a call. I called him out and lay in wait. And then it started raining really hard. With that kind of downpour, the festival should have come to a halt. In other words, it ended then. From the time the festival started to when it ended, it would have been impossible for me to have swung by the shrine grounds. Was I? I was already there when Mion and the others dragged Satoko out and brought her to the shrine. I was talking to Rika-chan. Then where would Rika-chan say we met? The teacher went out to wash her hands, so I ran over to Rika-chan's desk and asked her directly.
ケイチとですか？
あ、リカちゃんはミオンたちが来る前から俺と話してたんだろ？いつ俺に会ったんだ？いつ どこでだよ。
圭一が何を聞きたいのか
俺昨日、寝不足で半分頭がぼーっとなっててさ。
I clicked. Oh yeah, so I clicked her on accident. So I don't know what you're trying to ask. No, that's all she said.
何も覚えてないんだよ。
I looked like Rika-chan brought into my babbling.
圭一と会ったのは集会所から村長さんたちと出てきた時なのです。
Okay.
圭一は西宮殿の扉の前にいましたのですよ。
Oh, interesting.
何？西宮殿？
I'd never heard of a building called that before. Or maybe I had, but at the very least I wouldn't know where on the shrine grounds it was.
村長さんがそこは神聖な場所だからみだりに近寄ってはならにゅうと怒りましたですよ。圭一、それも忘れてしまいましたですか？
I was too scared to ask anymore. The more I asked, the more it became clear without any doubt that Keiichi Maribara was present at the Fruta de Shrine grounds during the Watanagashi festival. The clearer that became, the more doubts, no fears I had. Who on earth was I yesterday? That is odd and disconcerting, sure, but the gift this is, Keiichi, you have no idea. This is liquid gold. For someone who's committed a crime like this, you have the most airtight alibi that could exist. You were at the shrine. People saw you. You were there. You could not have been committing the murder, despite all the evidence that will be pointing to you being there, being seen on your bike, the shovel. Like, they're gonna come to the conclusion that a deviant from out of town stole a shovel from your shed and committed the murder. Maybe some old, fellow of his, and then tried to escape into the night. The fact that you're getting away with this like this is insane. But I think it's freaky, I understand, and he doesn't have the presence of mind to understand, just how critical it is that he have an alibi. But, oh my gosh, he's so lucky. Whoever that was, he had a good time at my place and managed to go the entire day without letting them notice I wasn't there. Oh, right. When did that person leave everyone? After this morning, my mother got mad at me for having stayed out so late last night, which meant that at the very least that Keiichi Maribara hadn't come home while my mother was still awake. The festival would have been closed because of the downpour. If I recall right, when I went back to the house's storage room to get another shovel, I think the clock said 7. Since it was already raining hard by then, the festival would have had to close down before 7. If I'd returned that early, I would have definitely run into my parents. Or at the very least, they would have asked me when I got back last night. So the Keiichi Maribara from yesterday, that meant he never went home. That meant the downpour happened, the festival was broken up, everyone left. But he didn't go back to the house. That means... When I arrived at the natural conclusion, a wicked chill suddenly froze my spine and climbed up into my brain. That meant Keiichi Maribara was the same as Satoshi. One day, he never went home. On the night of Watanagashi, he never went home. The downpour interrupted the festival, and on the way home, he suddenly disappeared. And I, who was dealing with the corpse, went home without a problem. I was so tired I wasn't even hungry, so I went up to my room without a sound and crawled into my futon. Who was I? Oh, he's worried he's a demon who's taken the place of Keiichi Maribara. That much was obvious. Keiichi Maribara was me. There may have been another one, but that doesn't negate the fact that I was Keiichi Maribara. Then the other Keiichi Maribara was what? The voices of the cicadas suddenly filling the classroom were beginning to bother me. Suddenly, I laid eyes on Satoko. Satoko's expression was dark as always. She seemed completely exhausted, as a life of agony that couldn't even imagine an ending to. What had last night been like for Satoko? Did she have fun while everyone and feel a little happier, even for a moment? And when she went home, the end of her dream, she'd probably gone to sleep afraid of what her uncle would return. And then this morning, her uncle hadn't come home. And then she went to school. Right now, she must be still trapped in the rotten idea from which she couldn't be saved, that her uncle would need her to go back. But you can rest easy, Satoko. Your uncle won't ever be coming back. I couldn't tell her it because I'd killed him. Is that right? I couldn't tell her it was because I killed him. I don't know why I read that so weird. When Satoko realized on her own that her uncle would never return, then that would truly be the end of the long, insane night. That's right. I didn't do anything wrong. I did the best possible thing I could have with Satoko's Nini. Not an atom in my body regretted it. Now look, calm down and think, Keiichi Maribara. From a certain point of view, isn't it convenient that there was another Keiichi Maribara? Thank you! I buried the corpse perfectly. No, you didn't. The beginning wouldn't happen. But if worse came to worse and it got out and the investigation got to me, I now had a strong alibi, able to profess the fact that I'd been at the Watanagashi festival. But accepting something so creepy and using it as an alibi? Still, if it proved I hadn't gone to the festival yesterday, it would do no good as a whole and a whole lot of harm. That was what left the reality actually bad aftertaste. You'll forget all about it, Keiichi Maribara. Everything that happened before you today. So just forget about Keiichi Maribara, who was there yesterday too. Instead, let's watch gently over Satoko for the day her smile returns. And the day that would mark the end of the insane, all too long night. This is crazy.
それでは今日はこれで終わりです。皆さん、寄り道をしないでちゃんとお家へ帰るんですよ。委員長、号令。起立！礼！
Goodbye. I thought about many things, saw my thoughts dispersed by many other things. I didn't know whether or not the time had been spent worrying or daydreaming, but either way it came to an end along with the class. Cheerfully, our classmates got their things and ran for the hallway. Mion, Rena, and Rika-chan were packing up as well. What about Satoko? The whole day she'd seemed deflated. Well, her uncle may not have returned last night, but she wouldn't have known he'd never return. How much I wanted to express that fact to her. Satoko packed up her pencil box and math worksheet messily, and after a dark glance at the clock, heaved a sigh. Then went to leave the classroom. Then, suddenly, somebody placed a hand on her shoulder and stopped her.
何ですの？私、ちゃんと水やり当番もやりましたし、プリントだってちゃんと。
Her words, possessed by a persecution complex, hurt. I spoke loudly so everyone could hear.
なあみんな、さ、今日は久しぶりにやらないか？部活。
Satoko had always had to tend to her uncle, so the club had been on hiatus. In our minds, the club was proof of a calm, peaceful life. By enjoying being together, I wanted to make Satoko realize her days of darkness were over.
レナは、いいよ。
そりゃ、私は構わないけど、さとこがいいならね。
Under a condition. That was important. With everything up to her, Satoko gave a worried look.
なあ、さとこ。久々にどうだよ。パーッとさ。
お気持ちは嬉しいでございますけど。
My uncle might already be home. Thus spoke her darkening eyes, her mouth unmoving.
さとこもさ、連日息が詰まるような生活をずっと続けててさ。もうそんなのは心にも体にも悪いだけだぜ。やっぱり、たまにはパーッと弾けなきゃな。
放っておいてくださいまし。私だって、そりゃ部活がまたやれたらと思っていますわよ。
With one word, but, she looked down.
みんなで遊んだ方が楽しいのは、さとこだってよく知ってるだろ。
Hey, Keiichi. I know you want to stop pushing.
俺たちは仲間だぜ。みんなで一緒に過ごすようにできてるんだよ。さとこだって昨日、みんなでお祭りで騒いで楽しかったろ？
Rena nearly said something, but she was too late.
ケイチさん、何を言ってますの？
My arm on her shoulder seemed to weigh her down as she threw it off.
私がお祭りで楽しく、いつ遊んだって言うんですの？楽しく遊んだのは、ケイチさんだけじゃありませんの。
Oh. I looked over at Mion for help, but now everyone was looking down. My instincts told me that Satoko hadn't gone to the festival. But Rena said it herself, that she went with Mion to Satoko's house to invite her.
さとこちゃん、途中で帰っちゃったの。神社には行かなかった。
どうして？
I realized the absurdity of what I just said with Satoko in front of me.
おじが家で待ってるのに、一人だけ遊んでると悪いって言って。神社の直前で。
私たちも引き止めたんだよ。今日はおじさん公認だから、ちゃんと遊んでも怒られないんだよって。
But wait, she wasn't home because we were able to lure him out of the house. So, what? Did they just happen to pass each other by? At some point, tears had begun welling in Satoko's eyes. Satoko, who was afraid of her uncle, that she couldn't even allow herself time with her friends, and went home. No, she wasn't. She was even afraid of letting herself have a good time with her friends.
圭一さんはいいですわね。みんなで楽しくお祭り一夜を過ごせて。
Ugh.
聞けば、大層盛り上がって大活躍だったそうじゃないですの。お羨ましいことですわ。
Smiling to herself, the tears began to fall.
私には、養わなければならない叔父がいますの。
Oh, fetch me. Good grief. Why? Why is this happening?
圭一さんみたいに、ご両親にのんびり養ってもらってる人とは、わけが違いますですのよ。
さとこ。
楽しくお祭りが過ごせてよかったですわね。私の分まで、楽しく過ごせて本当におよろしかったですこと。私だって、部活がしたいですわ。みんなで楽しく大騒ぎして、楽しくて楽しくて。でも、今の私、そんなの。
Unable to withstand such violent emotion, a few teardrops slid down her cheek. But even though she was having such a terrible time, not once did she ever say that it was hard for her. It was sad. Obstinate bravery. But these days when Satoko had to feel, like that were over. Satoko didn't need to endure it, to bear it anymore. She couldn't forget about it all and smile. I was so frustrated not being able to tell her that directly. Instead, I said something that I'm not sure I should have said before I thought twice about it.
帰ってこないんだろ、あいつは。
The words were deeply meaningful to me, but I didn't know Satoko understood them.
帰ってこないって、誰がですの？
ゆうべは帰らなかったんだろ。お前のお家は。
何を言ってますの、圭一さんは。
Satoko shouted with all her might.
あいつが、いついなくなったって言うんですの？いつ？
落ち着けよ。だって、昨日あいつは帰ってこなかったろ。
圭一さんが何を言ってるのか全然わかりませんでしたよ。
Yeah, I don't know. We should probably abort this real quick, but what the fetch is this implying?
さとここそ何を言ってんだよ。だってあの男は。
I killed him. Killed him yesterday. Killed him for sure. And I buried him. Buried him whole. He could never have returned to his house.
昨日だって私にいっぱい意地悪して、怒鳴って、わめいて、旗に散らして、作ったご飯を投げられた。お味噌汁もひっくり返された。暑かった。汚かった。そしてお掃除も私がした。私が。
What? Our stories weren't matching up.
あいつ、いる？
今朝だって朝ごはんの時は起こせって言われたから起こしたの
Oh,
に。
fetch. What the heck?
起こさなかったらまた怒るのに起こしても怒られた。
さとこ。
How? Rika-chan went over to Satoko and said a few words of consolation. What the fetch is happening? But Satoko angrily refused those words and thrust Rika-chan away.
いいに。早く帰ってきてよ。
What the fetch is happening? Crying, Satoko slowly walked into the hallway. After a moment, Rika-chan went after her. I couldn't stop thinking about the words Satoko had spoken while crying. I buried her uncle last night. But she said this morning. That was impossible. I buried him last night, so he couldn't have seen her uncle this morning. What was Satoko? At that point, I heard Mion's cold voice.
ねえ、ケイちゃん。サトコのおじさんが帰ってこないって。
Gulp.
何？
I said too much. I let my emotions get the better of me.
レナも聞いたよ。サトコちゃんのおじさんが帰ってこないって言った。
どうして？なんで帰ってこないの？
おかしいよね。
Oh no.
だって、今朝もちゃんとサトコちゃんのおじさんはいるんだよ。
What?
なのに、なんで帰ってこないなんて言うのかな。 かな。
ケイちゃん、言ってることがさっきから変。
Suddenly, Mia and Rena started to speak in strange, creepy voices. What were they doing? What were they saying? What is
ケイ
happening
ちゃ
right
んは
now?
サトコのおじさんがいると何か都合が悪いことでもあるわけ？
Okay, that's a weird take.
お前らこそ、何を言ってるんだ？サトコのおじなんかいない方がいいに、決まってるだろうが！
それはもちろんいない方がいいよね。
What is happening? Something wasn't right. Oh, are you sure? The next thing I knew, Beyond and Rena were smiling thinly. Their eyes were dark and muddy, the way I'd never seen before. And our eyes met, and the mud seemed to fill the air.
サトコのおじは確かに嫌なやつだよね。私もいなくなった方がいいやつだと思うよ。でもさ、仕方ないじゃない？
Nothing we can do? Something's wrong. Something's clearly wrong here. What the hell was happening? After a moment, a chilly liquid-like feeling, as though my blood had been mixed with sherbet, crawled up my spine.
仕方ないって、そりゃ、仕方ないけど、でも、それじゃ、サトコが。
仕方がなければ、どうするのかな。
Rena was trying to prompt me to say more. There really is no choice, so I killed him. I killed him to protect Satoko.
それは。
放っておきなよ。そのうち解決しちゃうと思うしさ。
サトコちゃんが、おじさんがいるって言ってるんだからいる。
Okay.
ちゃんと昨日もいたし、今朝もいる。
Okay.
そうならそうでいいんじゃないかな。かな。
No. Well, what the fetch is happening? Mia and Rena were speaking unbelievably dismissively. How could they be talking like that? Mia and Rena, they were my friends. They were seriously worried about Satoko's abuse, weren't they? They would never blurt out something like this. And I definitely killed Satoko's uncle. No matter what Satoko or anyone else said, I wouldn't acknowledge it because him being alive was impossible. There's no way he was alive. Go check. Not where you buried him, go check the house. It was impossible. And yet, since Satoko herself said he was here, that he was alive, I didn't know why or how, but suddenly Mia and Rena were at my side, standing there silently.
帰ろうよ、ケイちゃん。
帰ったらね、今日は久しぶりにレナ、宝探しに行くつもりなんだ。
Okay.
みーちゃんも来るんだよ。
Oh no. I don't like where this is going.
ケイちゃんも一緒に行こ
I think we're about to be vanished.
う。もちろん拒否権はないからね。
We're gonna die. They are gonna kill us here. If words could freeze blood, then there was no doubt they would have frozen me solid. I could hear it, a strange sound like a layer of thin ice spreading, emanating from every joint in my body. And with them closely at my sides, we left the school as if we were police officers taking me away. They talked about silly things the entire way home, like they always did, but they always stood next to my sides as if to prevent me from escaping. This was strange. Everything about this day was strange. Yeah? Like, supremely? Actually, it had been strange ever since the previous night. Yeah, thinking back, it had been strange since killing Satoko's uncle. That creepy meeting with Takano-san was only the beginning. The insane night was still continuing. Yes, it still hadn't ended.
何？どうしたのケイちゃん。急に立ち止まったりして。
ごめん。なんでもないよ。
When I stopped, it was distant, but I definitely heard them. The extra set of footsteps. That was the proof. Proof that an insane night hadn't ended. Mian left where she usually did, and finally we came to my house.
じゃあね、ケイチくん。お家で待っててね。レナ、すぐに迎えに行くから。
What was it? She was inviting me along one of her oversized garbage treasure hunts at the dam site, right? But why now? Mian coming along was strange too. Mian may have accepted Rena's little hobby, but she hated fishing through garbage, so she'd never come with her before. And the location specifically being the dam site was a little creepy. The damn construction site was completely outside the flow of everyday life. It was so remote that nobody ever went there unless they had they thought to in particular. Nobody lived there. There were no lights. The night got very dark quickly. I was being forcibly invited there. There was no reason I had to fear Rena or Mion. Besides, wouldn't the trouble I'd make by refusing them be a pain to deal with? In that way, it didn't seem like they were going treasure hunting with them was a bad idea. But that insane night was continuing. Hadn't the sirens of insects been wailing in my mind for a while now? It's like we did jump into like the first chapter, because the first chapter was them turning against us like this. But then there's odd correlation events too. Like, it's what the fetch is happening? Warning me that Ren and Mion were strange. That I needed to be cautious. The warning signs are so freaking loud, it felt like my head would split in two.
あ、でも、俺、実はちょっと、用事があるんだ。
用事？何の？
なんのって、用事だよ、用事。
用事なら、なんでみーちゃんがいるうちに言ってくれなかったの？みーちゃんとは、ダム現場で待ち合わせって言って別れちゃった後なのに。
Rena was smiling, but her words made her discomfort clear.
ごめん。ちょっと、言い出すタイミングを逃しちゃって。
本当に？
You're lying, aren't you? You just made it out of now, you liar. That's what Rena's eyes said to me.
俺、頭が痛いんだ。風邪かもしれない。だから、病院に行って、薬をもらってきたいんだよ。
本当に？
Actually, that is true, though. That wasn't really a lie. My head did hurt a little bit, so I wasn't lying. Rena, she couldn't figure out my head was hurt or not just by looking at it.
なら仕方ないね。
After staring in my eyes for a few moments, she fired a sharp needle-like stare at me. The tension in my body loosened. I felt like my knees might buckle.
診療所に行くなら、早く行った方がいいと思うよ。あそこ、たまに早く閉まるから。
ありがとう。そうするよ。
必ず行くんだよ、病院。
行くよ。
本当に行くんだよ。
行く。
It seemed like Ren had realized that I was going to refuse her invitation for a while now. With how seriously she looked, she might call the clinic later to make sure I went. I couldn't say anything careless. Lying about getting checked out was just an excuse to decline her request in the first place. It didn't matter whether I actually went.
あ、ちゃんと行くよ。なんなら明日、病院のレシートを持って行ってもいい。
それいいね。必ずもらっておいてね。
Oh gosh.
レナ、明日見るから。
Why? Another tingle started crawling up my back. There was no ignoring it. Ren and Mion have been monitoring my movements. That wasn't normal. Far from it. All of it was insane. I did what I did because I wanted my peaceful life back. But what on earth was all this? It was far from peaceful. Something had gone mad, leaving the world out of order. With other Keiichi Maribara, with those creepy footsteps I've been hearing, with Rena and Mion acting so curious, and above all, with him being alive. Where was I? Hinamizawa village, Shishibon? I knew that much. Was this really the Hinamizawa I knew?
おい、前原圭一。ここは、どこなんだ?
It's almost like he flipped with a different version of himself. I asked, whipping around before the front door to face the one who had been following me in my wake all day. Nobody would have been there, of course. Keiichi Maribara, huh? That's what I just called him. Called the one who had been trailing behind me this whole time. That shadowy presence always clinging to me like it was constantly watching for the opportunity to change places. Footsteps always following me with another impossibility. It couldn't have been a ghost, it was just simply impossible. So the strangeness must have been my ears in my head or Hinamizawa. Everything I could see was the same exact Hinamizawa I knew so well, and that gave me the creeps. Eventually I decided to actually go to the clinic. I really didn't want to go outside, but the stronger feeling than that desire was the fear Rena might actually be keeping an eye on me to see if I went to the hospital. But before I went to the clinic, there was something I wanted to make sure of. I was at school. I pretended I'd forgotten something, and was going back to the classroom to pick it up. He's gonna check about the bat, huh? As soon as the thought crossed my mind, I was overwhelmed by paranoia. I was just going to the classroom, but I hated it so much, having to be so careful to fake it. After carefully verifying once more nobody's watching, I went over to the locker. Yes, Satoshi's locker. I committed the crime with the bat I found in the locker, Satoshi's bat. And then I had thrown the bat in the swamp, which meant the bat shouldn't have been inside. But, what if the bat was still in there? It was a very dreadful, incomprehensible idea, but if it was true, it would explain a lot. If the bat was in here, yesterday's events would have all been a delusion, not an illusion. I hadn't killed anyone. I'd gone to the festival. I'd had a great time rampaging around with everyone. It would prove that Keiichi Maribaro was really me. Proof that I was only under some strange assumption that I'd killed Satoko's uncle. Proof that it had been a wild fantasy. That would explain everything. Nothing happened yesterday. I'd just gone mad, unable to separate my shocking uncle-killing dream from reality. That would explain everything. It would also explain why it worked out so well. If the bat was here, would I be able to accept that reality? If it was here, nothing would have changed. If I was here, it would just mean I'd gone crazy. Preparing myself for the worst, I opened the locker door. I was actually scared of opening it slowly, so I threw it open with a bang. And just like the first time, the choking scent of smell of sweat, like a stale towel, came flowing out. There was a baseball uniform, some miscellaneous other things like notebooks. There was also a shoe pouch. And as for the bat, it wasn't here. It was how I left it when I took the bat out. There was no doubt. Yesterday really happened. Now that I knew it wasn't a lunatic, I felt relieved. But at the same time, if I wasn't the crazy one, then Hinamizawa was... And that was evidently evidence of a reality I'd found just as difficult to accept. Yeah, at this point, all things are off the table. What the fetch is happening? There was noise somewhere, creeping into everything I saw. The world was losing a tiny bit of color. So what did I know about last night now? Now that I'd made sure the bat wasn't there, I didn't need to be here anymore. Shall I go? For real, to the hospital? Yeah, you should. It wasn't my first time going to the hospital. From what I'd heard, it wasn't far from school. My mom had told me where it was. A big, easy-to-see road went straight there. I went past the shopping street, made a turn. It wasn't overly hard to spot the sign with Irie Clinic written on it. There was one other person, an older man, in the air conditioning waiting room. Went up to the counter and told them it was my first time here. The man behind the counter glanced at the clock and said it would be a short wait. It was almost 5. Clinic hours would be ending soon. As I sat in the unfamiliar waiting room, isolated from everyone, I let myself feel the cool air. I actively felt relieved. What should I tell the doctor when he comes? I could tell him I had a cold, but it was a very picture of health. Actually, I wanted him to check my head. I wanted someone to confirm for me whether I was really sane or not.
Maebara Keiichi-san.
Oh.
診察室へお入りください。
Hello, coach. Huh? The voice from the other side of the examination curtain. I thought I'd heard it somewhere before.
こんにちは。
Hello.
ここでお会いするのは初めてですね。
監督って、お医者さんだったんですか?
Everyone called him a doctor. That's not that surprising. Now that you mention it, he did seem to know his way around when he was looking at my shoulder at the nurse's office. It would make sense if he was actually a doctor. Come to think of it, our teacher called him Irie Sensei, didn't she?
一応お医者さんなんかやっていま
Wait,
す。
more or less? How are you more or less a doctor?
お医者さんはいいですよ。若いすべすべなお肌
Oh,
を見放題の触り放題。
Why?
怪しいお注射で自由を奪って私だけの専属メイドに。
Can you stop talking?
ありがとうございました。今のを見てただけで、風邪が治りました。
I'm gonna leave now. Goodbye.
失礼します。ペコリ。
わったったった。前原さん。
I agree, though. That was a great response.
冗談です。さあ、座って診察させてください。聴診器を当てますから、前原さんのすべすべのお胸を見せてください。
For some reason, I felt really relieved. After that insane night, and as much as I thought everything had gone crazy, Coach was here doing the same thing he always did. I was very happy for that.
風邪ではないようです。むしろ、全身の擦り傷や切り傷の方が、ひょっとして、半袖半ズボンで、藪の中に入って遊びましたか? 切り傷から破傷風菌が入った可能性もないとは言えませんし。
As I was chasing a man last night, I kept being scraped by bits of trees. I didn't realize I'd had so many cuts.
昨日のお祭りではしゃぎすぎましたね。若いというのはいいことです。
And once again, I apparently went to the festival.
監督も行ったんですよね、お祭り。
ええ、もちろんですよ。私こう見えても綿流しの実行委員会の役員ですからね。
Oh, interesting.
俺に会いましたか？
The coach was the same coach I'd always known. I felt like I could trust him more than my weird friends, so I asked.
実は私、本部テントでずっと会長さんたちとお酒を飲んでたんで、全然お祭りは見て回ってないんですよ。前原さんには会ってないと思います。
そうですか。
変わった質問をしましたね。ひょっとして今日、寝不足ですか？いけませんよ。成長期はよく食べよく寝て育つんですから。
Coach let out a laugh. He didn't laugh in an unnatural way like me and Rena did. Coach was okay. He was the coach from the world I knew. He wasn't someone from this abnormal world.
こんな話、きっと変だと思うんですけど、笑わないで聞いてほしいんです。
Okay, how much you gonna tell him?
ねえ、どうぞ。思春期のシャイな悩み、大いに歓迎ですよ。
Never mind.
俺と瓜二つな人間がいるなんてありえますか？
Coach hadn't expected that question at all and couldn't say anything for a moment. But then he smiled calmly and quietly answered.
迷信ですが、世界には自分と全く同じ顔をした人があと2人いるなんて話を聞いたことがありますね。いるならぜひお会いしてみたいものですが。あと、おとぎ話にも自分の分身が登場する話がいろいろありますよ。
Yeah, that's true.
ドイツのおとぎ話に出てくるドッペルのお化けなどは有名です。
ドッペルのお化け？
ええ、自分の姿に瓜二つなんだそうです。不幸の前触れなんだそうで、これに会ってしまうと近いうちに死んでしまうみたいな話らしいですよ。
Oh, cool. Comforting. When you meet them, you're sure to die soon. The story ended directly at death, plain and simple, made my spine tingle. Coach wasn't saying it to scare me, though. He was just offering a casual anecdote, but it made me feel all the more real.
そのお化けがHinamizawaに出るなんて話はありますか？
ええさて、どうでしょう。
Coach must have thought he was being teased, so he laughed in an exaggerated way. But when I didn't smile along with him, his laughter steadily grew fainter.
すみません。ちょっと真面目な話のつもりだったんで。
いえ、こっちこそ笑ってすみませんでした。何か気になることでもおありですか？
I wondered if I should tell him, then after resolving myself one final time, I slowly spoke.
俺、昨日はお祭りに行っていないんです。
そうでしたか。お祭りは来年もあります。その時また。
そうじゃなくて、俺は祭りに行っていないのに、みんなが言うには、俺は祭りにいたらしいんですよ。
Interesting he's telling him this, but at the same time, I feel like he's gonna explode if he doesn't. And like with so much weirdness going on, I almost feel like you have to tell somebody.
こんなことってあるんですか？
After blinking his eyes in amazement, Coach thought seriously about what he was trying to say. And he answered, choosing his words carefully.
お話を整理しますね。つまり前原くんは綿流しのお祭りに行ったけど、その記憶がないということですか？
No, I wasn't there. I was doing other things, but everyone says I was there. I was trying to say something completely different, but I suppose any sane person would come to that conclusion. That night, Keiichi, my brother, was actually at the festival, but I was saying I didn't go. That obviously meant my memories of going there had failed me. But that was absolutely impossible. That vivid act I'd committed during the downpour couldn't possibly have been an illusion. And these scrapes on my body proved it, as did the fact the bat wasn't in the locker.
いえ、違うんです、監督。俺は本当に祭りに行っていないんです。
気を悪くしないでくださいよ、前原さん。前原さんには、これまでに気づいたら見知らぬ場所にいたとか、そういう 記憶の欠落を経験されたことがありますか？
I'm trying to remember if I've ever had that experience before. And I don't think I ever have. Not even remotely. The closest thing could be I've gotten lost in thought while driving or traveling somewhere, like walking or anything. And then I seemingly am just there or closer. Like the traveling, I was so distracted, like I wasn't like retaining memory of it.
ないです。それに、記憶を失ったとか、そういうのじゃない。だって、その祭りの時間には、別の用事を確かにやっていましたから。
Well, the next question is going to be like, what were you doing?
寝てて意識がなかったとか、そういうのじゃありません。
その用事は間違いなく、大変失礼ですが、何かの思い込みでなく。
I'd be like, look, either I'm crazy or yes.
間違いありません。完全にはっきりとした記憶。いや、事実です。
お祭りの時間に神社にいなくて、よそで別の用事をしていた。それをはっきりした形で証明できますか？
No. I was right. Thinking it through brought me to this. There was only one way to prove I wasn't really at the festival yesterday, and that was to show that there was no doubt I'd killed her uncle. Coach saw me struggling to answer, and his eyes looked a little cold. I guess they would. After all, from Coach's perspective, I was just a weirdo sputtering nonsense.
少し横になりましょうか。心を落ち着けて楽にしましょう。
別に横に遠慮します。
少し神経に高ぶりがあるようです。鎮静剤を注射して少し目をつむってみませんか？それで。
俺は異常者じゃない。
Yeah, you are. I realized Coach would treat me like a deviant, so I raised my voice.
気に障ったなら謝ります。ですからどうか。
俺は絶対に祭りには行っていない。それは本当に間違いないんです。
分かってます。分かってますから、どうか落ち着いて深呼吸。
あんたは全然分かっていない。
Coach was stunned and stared in stupefaction.
分かっていますよ。前原さん、あなたは昨日はお祭りに来なかった。そうですよね。
He's talking to a crazy person. That's how he's acting.
私は信じます。信じますよ。
Coach jotted down a brief note in his records. He was writing it in German, so that his patients wouldn't know what he said. But I could make a good guess as to what he wrote.
あの時間に何をしていたか、全部話さない
Oh
と信じませんか。
gosh.
いいえ、信じますから。どうか座ってください。
Before I sat, I tilted my head back a little. The blood in my face all drained out and I quieted down. After taking a deep breath, I made sure I was calm now.
俺が祭りの会場にいることはありえない。なぜなら、
Oh,
その時間に
don't say it.
俺は
Should I tell him or not? I really didn't want to go on living like this, feeling this horrible. And I said them, the final fatal words.
サトコの王子
Don't.
を
No!
殺していたからです。
Why would you do that? Why would you do that? You're a psychopath. Why? I could smell the concrete in the room. I could feel the air around us sharpen. Nobody moved. Only the sound of the clock ticking told us time hadn't stopped. With his mouth wide open, Coach even forgot to blink for a little while.
あなたが、さとこちゃんのおじさんを？
Yeah. It's fine now, Keiichi Maibara. Don't hesitate. Admit it, with all your strength.
はい、俺が昨日の夜
Why?
殺しました。
So much for not letting the story start. I spoke clearly and fluidly. I could easily tell the coach's mind had gone completely blank.
どうしてそんなことを？いえ、それは愚問ですね。
サトコを救う最も直接的な方法だと考えるに至り実行しました。後悔はわずかもありません。
そうですか。
Coach smiled thinly and nodded a bit.
だから俺は祭りの会場にいるわけがないんです。
I let the brightness of my house and the darkness of the outside. After that, I dug holes, made phone calls, and had my hands full. And then I attacked him, killed him, and buried him. I was pouring hard at the time. The festival started the evening, but was suspended due to the rain. There was no gaps in my memories. From the late afternoon until it started to rain, there was no time for me to do this and possibly have gone to the festival.
その体中の傷はその時に。
そうです。サトコの家を少し行ったところに林道がありますよね。 あそこで襲い、逃げるあいつを追い、町に至る一本道で殺すに至りました。
それは、本当に？
Killing her uncle wasn't some wild fantasy? I could tell Coach didn't believe me, so I spoke slowly, not letting myself grow excited.
本当です。サトシのバットで殴り殺しました。そのバットは、あいつが乗ってきたバイクと一緒に沼に捨てました。死体は、殺した場所に穴を掘り埋めました。すべて、自分が一人でやりました。
さとこちゃんのおじは、バイクで通りかかったんですね。ではあなたは、それを期待して、延々と待ち伏せを。
He's gonna have the problems I had, where I was like, that's really convenient.
あいつが家から出ないことは想定していました。だから電話で適当な嘘を喋って、あいつが
電話で呼び出した。でも、あなたの家とさとこちゃんの家は離れています。電話をしてからでは、とても待ち伏せに間に合わないのでは。
襲撃予定場所から最も近い電話として、学校の電話を使いました。
でも前原さん、当日は日曜日です。学校には施錠がされていて、入れないのでは。
偶然その時、営林署の人が中に出入りしたんです。その隙に入りました。
After that, Coach grilled me on a few different things regarding the incident. He made sure to question me carefully, looking for any contradictions in my account.
信じましょう。あなたが昨日したことは、夢とは思えない。
I explained everything, including minor details that only someone who could have actually committed the act could explain. I could, of course. It was only yesterday. Coach realized that my story had no expedient coincidences or too convenient details that would have existed in a daydream or delusion. It finally seemed he wanted to believe me.
これでもまだ、俺が記憶をなくして、祭り会場に行ったと思いますか？
I kind of get it though, in hindsight. Like, he just doesn't want to feel like he's crazy. He wants to make sure that, like, he's not, because, like, the idea that there's another version of him running around is horrifying. But, like, at the same time, it's gonna ruin him. He almost got away with it. He could have, at least. He had a good alibi. Coach slowly shook his head.
でも、クラスのみんなが、昨日、確かに俺が祭りにいたと言います。そんなことが、あり得るでしょうか？
あるわけがない。きっとクラスの皆さんは、あなたによく似た誰かと、あなたを見間違えたのでしょう。それに集団心理が働いて、皆さんは、あなたがお祭りにいたと錯覚してしまっているに違い
I
あ
don't
りま
know.
せん。
They had, like, very specific memories rather than just, like, a vague sense he was there. They couldn't have mistaken me. Mion and all the rest said they were spending time with Keiichi Meibara. It was very much more than having mistaken someone else for me. But saying it out loud would just confuse Coach. He spoke to me in a whispered tones.
罪の意識はあるんですか？
It didn't sound like he was criticizing me. And even if I had, I would have flatly said the same thing.
ありません。あいつのいなかった平穏な時間を取り戻すために行いました。だから、俺はあいつを殺したことなんかさっさと忘れて、これまで通りに生活するつもりです。
Easy to say.
あいつが現れる前、サトコがいつも見せてくれたあの笑顔が戻った時、ようやく全ては終わります。
犯行を誰かに目撃されたということは？
ないと思います。目撃されてれば、もうとっくに逮捕されてるでしょうから。
Not necessarily.
私は医者です。人の命を救う職にあります。だから私から人間の命を奪うことを肯定する旨の発言はできません。
But you're not gonna report it either?
だから、私はあなたにこう言います。
Coach slowly rose and placed a hand on my shoulder. You're like, don't say this to anyone.
さとこちゃんを救ってくれて
Coach's
あり
eyes
がとう。
started shedding warm tears. When I looked at him, I started to feel some tears of my own. I didn't know what I was crying for. And so for a little while, the two men in the room fought back their tears.
でも、おかしいんです。
おかしいとは？
確かに殺したはずなのに。あの男は、生きて家に帰ったらしいんです。
Coach's expression immediately sharpened.
状況にもよりますが、気絶や仮死状態など、 素人が見ると死んだようにしか見えない状態もいくつかあり
Oh,
ます。
that would be absolutely insane.
その可能性は？
脈を取ったわけではありませんが、確実に仕留めたと思います。
前原さんが襲った時の状況を再現してもらってもいいですか？
Coach rolled up a health and fitness weekly poster nearby and offered it to me to represent the bat. Though I may have been lost in emotions of the beating last night, I remembered in detail the number of times I swung the bat, the angles I'd swung from, and the force I'd applied. Using Coach as a stand-in for the uncle, I reproduced them over one by one.
そしてあいつが足を取られてよろめいた時、その時これまでとは違った手応えがありました。頭蓋骨が割れたんだと思いました。
Coach was calmly analyzing this information using the places I'd struck in the situation at hand to find out what state his uncle's body had been in.
そして死んだかどうか自信が持てなかったので、倒れた後も何度か殴りつけました。
That probably should have done it.
その時の反応は？
初めは殴るたびに体が跳ねるような感じがありましたが、やがてそれもなくなり、何の反応もなくなりました。
Yeah, I think he got him.
うーん。
Coach folded his arms and said a few times. And then he spoke.
死んでいます。ほぼ間違いなく。
それは仮死状態ではなく？
前原さんの話からだけではなかなか判断がつきませんが、ほぼ確実だと思います。それに前原さんは死体を泥の中に埋め、結構な時間をかけて埋めていますよね。仮に30分で埋めたとして、その男は30分間も泥水に沈められていたことになります。
Yeah, that'll do it.
それだけの時間、呼吸が止められたら確実に脳死します。
殴った強さ以前に埋める過程で確実に絶命したと？
そういうことです。30分間泥に埋められていて生きていられる人などありえません。
Especially wet ground like that. Like maybe if you had an air pocket you could, at least a little conceivably, but not like that.
ありえないですよね。でも聡子は生きてると。
Coach, the doctor, just gave his stamp of approval that he was dead for sure. That made it all seem all the more unfair that he could still be among the living.
前原さん、これはとても恐ろしい想像なのですが、前原さんが殺した相手が
Oh gosh.
叔父でなく別人である可能性は？
Holy crap. What if... Oh no. I hadn't even thought of that. He's right. That could be why. It cleared up the inconsistency of my definitely having killed somebody, but him still being alive.
そんなはずはない。だってほら、監督と一緒に聡子の家の前で酒瓶の袋を運んだ時、窓から顔を出した男がいたじゃないですか。
But he had a friend there.
あいつですよね、聡子の叔父は。
ええ、間違いありませんよ。あの男です。
実はもう一人叔父がいるなんてことは？
聞いたことがありません。あの男だけです。
あいつの特徴を教えてもらえますか？
まず身長がですね、175、もう少しあるかもしれません。
Okay. In order to eliminate the worst possibility that I'd killed someone else, Coach began thoroughly comparing what the man in his mind looked like to what I told him personally the person I killed looked like. But no matter how in depth my description went, none of the characteristics differed. The uncle's traits, according to Coach, were all exactly the same as the person I'd killed. But those traits were all extremely vague, and it wasn't particularly distinct at a glance.
もっとこう絶対にあいつだと識別できる特徴はありませんか？
Go to the house and see what's going on.
そういえば、私は見たことありませんが、聡子ちゃんが昔、背中に虎だかなんだかの入れ墨がある、なんて言っていたような気がしま
Don't
す。
you dare. Casey, you better not try to say, I'm gonna go check. Don't
入
check.
れ墨？
It was really important. Not everyone had a tattoo. If I found a tiger tattoo on the back of the man's corpse, it'd be proof I killed the right one. No! Just go to freaking Satoko's house! At that moment, though, there was one other thing that could verify this. To go to Satoko's house, see for myself the uncle had returned home despite having died. But that was far more terrifying than digging up the body and looking at its back. Without even looking at the tattoo, I knew for sure the one I'd killed had been Satoko's uncle. I cracked his head open and killed him. And yet, he'd gone back home. There wasn't any misunderstanding or even shadow of a doubt in my mind about having killed him. And yet, it was impossible for him to exist. Kind of like how Keiichi Maribara had been at the festival despite it being impossible. That small commonality made me feel as though a faint but bizarre force was permeating this insane Hinamizawa. So if there's a doppelganger though, like we're actively saying, alright, we assume the doppelganger was real. Why couldn't it have been Keiichi at the festival and the uncle at home? Because maybe it's like gonna float the two events like apart from each other to make more obscure, but like why?
一体どういうことなのでしょう。前原さんはお祭りには行かず、さとこちゃんのおじさんを殺していたにもかかわらず、お祭りにはあなたがいて、そして殺したはずのおじさんも生きている。
何がなんだかさっぱりわからないです。そうやって整理して言うと、まるで俺が悪い夢を見ていて、実は殺人なんて存在しなかったんじゃないかと思えてしまう。
Which is why he's asking.
でも事実なんです。この手でバットでガツンガツンと殴ったあの感触は絶対に夢や幻なんかじゃないんです。
Coach let out a low sigh and then looking at the clock got up.
ちょっとこの話、もう少し真剣にやりましょう。ちょっと失礼して、紅茶でも入れてきてあげます。診療所も終わりの時間ですからね。ジムの方とかも返してあげないと。
Coach stood up and went out to the hallway, leaving me all alone. The clock, oh crap. The clock was about to strike 6. I was at the festival. The uncle I tried to kill was alive. Had I really committed murder yesterday? The only whisper of the fact that proved it happened was the absence of the bat from Satoshi's locker. In any case, I was glad the coach had taken my nonsense seriously. I just confessed to murder. Normally that would frighten a person away, but Coach didn't run, he cried with me. I was glad he did. Like so, my tension smoothly melted away and suddenly I realized I had to urinate. I thought that I used the restroom while Coach had stepped out. There was one across from the waiting room. And as soon as I left the room, I saw Coach and 2 male doctors wearing white clothes standing in the shadows of the hallway nearby. I didn't particularly intend to eavesdrop or anything, but I was quite surprised upon noticing how uneasy they seemed. I hid behind the wall and quietly listened in. It seemed like Coach was giving directions to the 2 doctors.
紅茶ですね。用意します。
睡眠導入剤を入れて、
Oh,
種類は任せます。
oh no.
味はミルクと砂糖でごまかしてください。
急激な眠気に不信感を抱く可能性もあります。興奮状態に陥って暴れ出す可能性も。
その場合は取り押さえましょう。男性スタッフはまだ何人か残ってますか？
山犬が1人。それに私たちを含めて3人です。
Mountain Dog. Is that the cult members? Wait, what was all this? I think I was already anticipated despite what Coach said. Was that it? Was it just casual conversation? It was sounding unbelievable to me. Coach said he would bring back some black tea and left the room, and then in the shadows he was telling his subordinates to put some kind of sleeping powder in the tea. Plus, they were getting extra help in case I thought a sudden sleepiness was suspicious and started getting violent. Hey, wait, Keiichi Maribara. Calm down, calm down. There's no way something this stupid could be happening. I mean, he was genuinely listening to my story. He even cried with me. I thought he was the one person in Hinamizawa who would understand. This was...
作り話か虚言の兆候があり、特に昨日の記憶が完全に混乱。
Okay.
虚実の区別の喪失。
What?
多重人格等の精神障害に酷似しています。でも、こんな急激な精神障害の発症は普通では考えられません。
What the bitch is happening?
あるいは先天的、もしくは引っ越し前からそういう兆候があったのか。引っ越し前に精神科に通院例がないか調べたいところです。とにかく前原さんには穏便にお休みいただきます。
The 2 doctors nodded deeply.
前原さんのご両親にも連絡しておいた方が良いですね。何と言えばいいか。彼の自宅の電話番号を調べてください。
My eyes, still moist, began to shed tears once more. This was too cruel. He really thought he had actually understood, that he believed what I told him. But now, from the other side of that wall, he was bluntly treating me like a crazy person. I believe you. I believed you. I had to let down my guard because I thought you were the one ally I had left after this insane night. Was that a lie? All that about thanking me on Satoko's behalf? Or were you just pretending in order to keep me placated? Ugh. My tears fell from the floor in frustration. Again, I gotta go back to this whole thing. Like where they said here, there are one mountain dog, including us three. Yeah, like how many other male staff are here? One mountain dog. Oh my gosh. My tears fell to the floor in frustration. I was an idiot. I was an idiot! I was such an idiot for believing that bee. I heard footsteps approaching the doctors, and a man dressed in a shirt with no tie came running up.
入江先生、大変です。高野さんが見つかりました。
高野さんが一体どこに？
それが山中で焼死体で発見されたらしく。
Yeah.
死んだ？高野さんがですか？
The men all surprised exchanged glances. Dead? Takano-san. Hey, wait, so then does that mean when I cursed her wishing for her death, the wish was granted?
焼死とは一体どういうことですか？それは事故ですか？
県警の発表では他殺の可能性が極めて高いと。
No, he's gonna feel like he's got power now. As I cried, I laughed quietly. Serves you right. Serves you right. If I hadn't run into that woman, my murder would have been perfect. But since she had to come driving up to me and tried to coerce me like that, I regretted not having killed her on the spot, but now she was dead anyway. My curse, my wish for her demise, it was fulfilled. Serves you right. Serves you right.
リサさんが死に、高野さんが死に、一体ひなみ沢には何が起こっていると言うんですか？
Risa-san. Who's Risa-san?
まさかこれが今年のお社様のたたりだなんて言うんじゃないでしょうね。
Like hell, I'd let the curse be real, Coach said. Everyone present just nodded as Coach cursed to no one in particular. Yes, maybe it wasn't Oyushi or Sama, but it was definitely a spell, a curse. I wished for her to die, so she did. If this wasn't just a coincidence, and she died because I wished for it, then you'll die next, Coach. You betrayed me. You pretended to believe me, but deep down you thought I was a madman. You looked down on me with all that pity in your eyes.
では、とりあえず紅茶の準備を。紅茶は私が持って入ります。私以外には彼は心を許さないようですからね。
Shoot, shoot, shoot. What do I do? What do I do, Keiichi Maibara? This time I heard a voice of a nurse.
入江先生。あ、いらっしゃいましたか。お電話です。
Oh?
今ちょっと忙しいので、後でかけ直すと伝えてください。誰からです？
沖宮警察の大石様ですけど。
Oh, fetch!
あっちゃー。悪いタイミングですね。出ます出ます。
Coach left to go answer the phone. The other men headed toward the room with the teapot to make black tea like Coach had ordered them to. Fortunately, Coach having to take the phone call meant that there would be extra time for me to act. I had to decide what to do now. Would I let him make me drink the sedative-infused tea, or be held down and thrown to a mental hospital? Nothing would come from starting a brawl here. They had more people anyway. They were all bigger than me. If it came to a fight, I didn't stand a chance in hell. If I couldn't win against them, there was only one thing left to do. Run. Adrenaline suddenly rushed into my brain, and my body started to move with keen instinct like I had on that night. My surface temperature quickly cooled, the transmission routes between my cells enlarged. Using 360-degree visual information, I searched for an escape route. I would open the window behind me. Outside was a parking lot. There were no cars. A little beyond was a bicycle that I had taken to get here. I determined that this would be the quickest method of escape. I approached the window swiftly, but with a little sound to raise a little suspicion as I could. With the speed and silence of a shadow, like I'd had on that night I chased her uncle. I unlocked the window and opened it up. A cool evening breeze wafted in. I stuck my head out and looked all over the parking lot again. Nobody in sight. And no need to hesitate. I quietly crawled outside and closed the window behind me. I held my breath and listened carefully. Nobody seemed to have realized I'd run. I looked around. Then I jumped onto my bicycle and zoomed away. Well, what are you gonna do now, though? They're just gonna find you at home. The pedals clattered under the force. Had my bike always creaked like this? Did the pedals always whine every time I pushed down on them? My bike wasn't the only one crying, though. My tears fell as the wind cut through them. They rode the breeze and scattered behind me. Ugh! I hate this. I hate this. I'm not the crazy one. Hinamizawa is. How dare you treat me like a madman? Die. Die! Just fetching die already. I believed you. I believed you. Wah! I'd gone to the hospital in order to escape Rena and Mion's invitation. But the reality was that what was waiting for me had to have been too cruel. Who was insane, me or Hinamizawa? Yes! Or was the answer something else? I started having trouble breathing. I didn't have any clue what was happening anymore. The loud chirping of the Higurashi was irritating me. Were even the Hinamizawa Higurashi I knew so well calling the wind? No, that wasn't quite it. They weren't calling. They were crying. They pained wailing of those lost in some kind of rhythm, another world, no longer able to return to their own sunlight. I didn't do all that to end up in a world like that. And actually, at about this time, I might have been having fun with everyone else. Satoko would have gotten her smile back after realizing her uncle would never come home. She might have shown it to us at her first club meeting in a while. That was the kind of world I wished for. No, so what was this? Why did I end up in such a strange, ghastly world? Someone I'd killed was living like normal and had enjoyed myself at the festival despite not being there. I don't want it. I don't want this strange world. When did it start to go wrong? When? No matter how much I thought about it, I never understood. I rode swiftly and returned to my home. It had begun to rain during my journey back, just like yesterday, was now soaked. But I didn't care about something so trivial now. The pain I felt in my heart that Coach, the one person I trusted was acting cruelly, was far worse. Did I have no allies in Hinamizawa anymore? With the naive thought, I at least wanted my parents to side with me, so I stepped up to the front door. Wait, Keiichi. It'll be dark soon. There's something you want to check, right? Yes. I wanted to dig up the man's corpse and get a look at his back. If there was a tiger tattoo there, that would be beyond a doubt that he was Satoko's uncle. That long night wouldn't end until I was certain. If this insane world was all reparation and divine punishment, then I needed to make certain whether I had been successful enough to even deserve to pay that price. I went to the storage room again, got the shovel. It had been washed in the rain, but the paint was peeling, making it look unsightly. I never ever wanted to touch this thing again. The sensation of it in my hands was totally different from the night before. There was a ruthless coldness about it. Yeah, it would be dark soon, so I needed the lantern too. There would be a little bit of light from the street lights, but it would get extremely dark. There's no way it's not going to be watched, or at least like if it hasn't already been dug up and it's like has police all around it, there's going to be someone watching it.
Oh.
I thought I'd put the lantern here, but I suddenly noticed it wasn't here around anywhere to be found. Then it hit me like a bolt of lightning. Of course. On that night, I hadn't brought the lantern back with me. I'd left it at the place I buried the body. If I didn't go get it soon, it would get very dark. And then, not only would I be unable to find the spot I buried the corpse, but I wouldn't even be able to find the lantern itself. If that happened, it was all over.
Isogo.
In order to fit the shovel in my the front of my bike, I needed to twist and disassemble it. But it looked like there was dirt on the joints. No matter how hard I pushed, it wouldn't come apart. After the strenuous effort, I realized I couldn't get it apart, so I decided to hold it in one hand and rode my bike with the other. With the downpour soaking me through, the shovel in one hand, and riding one-handed. It was as if I had returned to that night. No, return was the wrong word. It was more like the night had never ended. The pain of the raindrops striking me was no different from then. The thing that was different was Hinamizawa. The world and nothing else. The rain clouds were already making it dark, so now was about the time for sun to set. I could tell it was only going to get rapidly darker. I really might need to stop here. I know I must be close to the end though. Let's push on a little further. The straight road leading to town, in the middle of it, that should be where I buried it. Yes, it was near the streetlight. On the night too, the water from the downpour splashing down from the streetlights overhang like a waterfall. On the pouring rain, exactly the same as it had been that night, and thus it brought my memories into focus. Left my bike in the brush and stepped into the forest, the ground already soaked with mud. Where had I buried him? Think. The darkness. The shadows. The water. The mud. Everything was the same. Think! And then I spotted the lantern by a fallen moss-covered tree. That's right, I left it right there. If I left the lantern here, then I would have buried him over here. With the sensation of standing in a sludge, my feet remembered the spot better than my eyes did. Why are you doing this? I plunged the shovel into the ground. Ugh, it's hard. It wasn't here. I just dug it up, so it should have been softer. Stuck my shovel down in a few spots to test what it felt like. One of them clearly felt deeper. I recalled where the lantern was, where the trees and things were in relation to each other, and I knew it had to be here. Under here slept the man's corpse. There would definitely be a tattoo of the tiger on his back. But if it wasn't there, then I had made a horrible mistake and killed someone completely unrelated instead. I would be more dazed at the fact that Satoko's uncle wasn't dead than I would have gotten somebody else mixed up in this. If this insane world was a punishment for the sin I committing murder, I wouldn't be able to accept it until I killed Satoko's uncle for good. And then, without any fear, I'd attack him again. And that time, I would kill him for sure. But what? If the tattoo was there? That would mean I'd killed Satoko's uncle. But that would be terribly strange. If I'd killed him for sure, then who was the uncle Satoko's house was at Satoko's house this very moment? Impossible. I didn't even know anymore what I was using the word impossible to refer to. I'd used the word quite a few times today. If I had to make a word impossible fit just one thing, what would it be? That much was obvious to me.
こんなおかしな世界がありえてたまるかよ
I shouted and turned behind me. There was nobody there, of course. It hadn't been bothering me for a while, but those footsteps had followed me the entire day. Even just now, an extra set of footsteps had splashed behind me. No one was actually there, no indications of anyone even. But there they were. They were there.
あんたは誰だ俺がこっちの世界に来てからずっとついてくるな
That's right. Thinking back, the first time I heard those footsteps was after Takano-san and I had parted. Those footsteps were my welcome to this strange inside-out world. No one could be there. I get no response. Whoever it was, they just kept staring at me. It wasn't ominous, just unpleasant. After staring into empty space for a bit, I bathed in the rain, my illogical anger slipped away. My tension loosened, and tired feeling reared its head. I tasted this feeling in that night too. A sudden exhaustion I felt, and the tension in my brain loosened. My vision quickly narrowed, and I felt like everything around me had suddenly gotten darker. I couldn't give in to this sensation. I would light what little explosives were left in my brain and force myself to keep going. I needed to dig that man up before my stamina ran out. I needed to see the tattoo on his back. I caught my sudden ragged breath to calm down. Then I struck the shovel on the soft, muddy ground again. Felt exactly the same as that night. The sense of digging a hole at the beach, with water coming in with every wave. What day was the day? Had I gone back to that night at Watanagashi? Every strange thought came to my mind, tormented me. Given my exhaustion, I didn't think I could manage to hold these thoughts back. Once the hole was deep, and illumination finally faded, blanketing my vision in jet black. It was probably the moment the sun had finally set too. That night, I feared the worst had gone without using much light. My senses were so strained I could see even in that darkness. But now I didn't have that kind of strength left. I drained everything I had last night, and now the darkness would be lethal. I decided to turn on the lantern. Putting on the first setting would make it give off a faint light. Even with how little there was, it was enough, and people would be able to see it from far away in this rain. I grabbed the chilled lantern, turned the dial to click, and set its weakest setting, and turned it on. An uncanny world of silhouettes appeared before me. A complex and strange shadowy world created by the intricate entanglement of trees and branches. I only turned on a light, but it was light. And it was like that was all it took to make the world into something else. I let out a quick, tired breath, wiped the liquid of the rain nor sweat from my brow. Then I raised the shovel to the air and slammed it into the mud. The moment. That silhouette surrounded me, ominously all moved at once. Uh-oh. Inside my head, something panicked in there. Something coarse, but not hot or cold. It was loudly rushing about. The silhouettes were all around me, looking down at me. And one of them, a silhouette bigger than the other, stepped forward. Oh no.
こんばんは。
It's over. It's over.
月の綺麗な晩ですね。
They already moved the body, and they waited to see if anyone would come back. The coarseness in my brain shot through my whole spine and left me at my waist. The strength in my body all left me in my hips, and I crouched down with a splash into the sea of mud I dug myself.
おいし
目上の人にはその後に3もつけるとそうでないと大人になってからいろいろと苦労します。
There wasn't only Oishi, but 5 or 6 of them in a row, men wearing raincoats. I had no inkling this many people had gotten so close. It was like once I turned on the lantern, they just appeared there, sliding out of the shadows.
どうぞ。森の木立だとでも思って。
Don't mind them?
そうです。私たちのことは気にされず、どうぞ穴掘りをお続けになってください。こんな時間にこんな土砂降りの中で、そんなにも真剣にやっているんですからね。邪魔なんかしませんよ。心ゆくまで掘っちゃってください。
No, thank you, I said. When I tried to get up and turn around, 2 men blocked that route. They stood on either side of me, lifting me up with amazing strength and threw me in a sea of mud. As I soaked there in the mud bath I dug for myself, I looked up at the silhouettes looking down at me. Oishi squatted, picking up my shovel and threw it at my feet for me. I bounced loudly off the mud and hit me in the face.
ほら、続きをどうぞ。続きを。
I couldn't bear the oppressiveness of the silhouette surrounding me. Slowly, I stuck the shovel into the mud again. Felt like I was digging my own grave. If I kept digging, it wouldn't matter whether they're tattooed or not, because the man's corpse would appear eventually. It was all over. Surrounded on all sides and nowhere to go. But I just couldn't figure it out, no matter how much I thought about it. Why were they here? Was it Takado-san? Or the only person that could have made the connection between me and this place? Shoot, I knew it. She deserved to die.
手が休んでますよ。
Bam. Oishi kicked me in the back, but it took me by surprise, sending me flying into the mud.
ちゃっちゃと掘っちゃってくださいよ。雨の中で待たされる方の身にもなってほしいもんで。
This is a real rough version of him.
くそ、そんなに雨が嫌なら帰ればいいだろう。
Oishi kicked some mud in my face.
口より先に手を動かしてください。口と手を一緒に動かすのは落語家だけ。ねえ。
The men around him didn't react, not knowing quite whether they should laugh, but when Oishi glared at them, they started mumbling out pain chuckles. Just who was this? Who was this guy? I knew the world had changed after that night, but if I went even further back, it didn't start when this guy didn't it start when this guy showed up? That was when our peaceful days had been taken from us. Ever since he showed up in Hinamizawa, things have been odd. Everyone stopped smiling, the world went crazy. The ground under my feet gradually got harder and heavier. At this point, even I started to think something was odd. I hadn't buried him this deep that night, had I? My exhaustion peaked, and I sat down on the spot.
いつまで掘ればいいんだよ。
最近の若い人は体力がありませんね。おい。
At Oishi's gesture, the men all pulled out their sinister-looking shovels. And I watched a daze. One of them grabbed my collar, dragged me out of the hole, and threw me to the ground. The rest of the men stepped to the hole I dug and started shoveling themselves. As I stared at them dumbfounded, Oishi sauntered over and squatted down to look at me directly.
前原圭一さん、あなたの趣味は雨の夜の穴掘りですかな?
When I didn't respond, Oishi took one of the tin buckets he was using to bail out the muddy water, scooped up some, and splashed the whole thing in my face. Okay. I know this sucks, but I really have to stop. I've run out of time. It's like almost 2 hours long. I really have to stop here. So I know it sucks because I bet you we're real close to the end, but we're going to go ahead and end here. I don't even know anymore. Every time I feel like I'm grasping at a straw of like what could possibly be going on, I keep getting thrown a curveball. I don't know what the heck is happening. Maybe I'll chew on it for a bit. Like, don't spoil it, obviously, but like, I'm gonna try and cook up some theories about what's happening, and I come back next time and kind of maybe get my thoughts together. But as it is, I'm just super confused. It's gonna be really interesting to see what happens here. Man, though, the curse is really starting to make some strong points here, huh? I just don't know. But we'll deal with it when we get to it. I guess we'll find out next time. At least a better idea. But appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel, for being a part of this adventure the day after, I suppose, and the nightmare that it is. But, you know, we'll get to it when we get to it. And hopefully you enjoyed this part of it. I'm curious to see what you think, but again, no spoilers, please. I need to like see this through to the end. And I know I'm sure we're so close to some big reveals and bigger moments, but like I literally don't have time. I have to like immediately like leave and like get ready for work. So like I don't have the time to do longer. So I appreciate your patience, and yeah, thank you to the patrons and members who support the channel directly. But for all of you, keep in mind, this coming out, I might be doing something this day. I'm not sure. You should have seen an announcement by now if it is going to happen. If you haven't, like check the community tab on the channel or the Discord and just see if I have any announcements. If I don't, then don't worry about it. But if so, I might have made some time to try and do something like a live stream or something. But you know, we'll see. Yeah, but it would be today, so looking forward to seeing you if I do. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next video. So whatever video you happen to watch with me or happen to see me in next, I'll see you there.